their children's education, and I think that they should be in charge of where their money is going towards. In the current system, the state gets to dictate where their money goes, and they have very little input in terms of how much is allocated for roads, how much is allocated for their child's school, how much is allocated for the police, or for various different projects that are not benefiting my area. I mean, you look at the 2013 transportation bill, and Northern Virginia is going to suffer more because of it. We also are going to have to pick up more of our own road infrastructure. VDOT has basically dropped the project in our hands at this point. And you also have to look at the impact it puts on fixed income individuals who now will not be able to buy as much with their dollar because all of the goods and services that they've been purchasing will now be taxed at a higher rate. And if the Congress doesn't pass the internet tax, it's going to increase the rate even further. So as a delegate, I would like to reduce taxes across the board and give that money back to the community.
Thank you. Laura DeLone.
So my opponent is a two-term incumbent and kind of your standard big spending status. Doesn't matter which party, they're all the same. And I don't think he has a tax plan that I know of. Just spend money where they think it would be beneficial. I think what would be beneficial is like people voluntarily help each other, voluntarily gives to the homeless, voluntarily build things where it's needed. My proposal, like I said, brings $3,400 back to each household every year. For me personally, that's paying off my student loan a few years faster. That's rent for a couple of months. So that's the benefit of my tax plan.
Thanks. Patrick Hyder.
Benefit of my tax plan, more money in your pockets. Big odds, give you all options. And
Hey Patrick,
could you speak up a little bit? Thanks.
more money in your pockets. I don't see the harm in that. It's definitely you can spend it however you want to spend. Like she said, student loans. Everyone's supposed to be hurting for money nowadays. That's more money in your pockets. Enough said. Random.
All right, thank you. On the issue of marriage equality, what do you propose that we do in Virginia on this issue? And I'd like to start with you, Patrick.
Get marriage out of the tax code. Therefore, the government has no say-so. Well, as long as marriage is in the tax code, the government's, because that's money with strings attached. You get money back, being married. Cut that out completely, and they can't say anything. I don't care if you marry your dog. It doesn't matter. They have no say-so if they're not giving you any tax breaks for it. I know, but yes, I'm sure if I can try to find a church to let that run. But that's it. And really, get the government out of the marriage, out of the tax code.
Got it. All right. Anthony Tellez, please.
I would agree with Patrick in terms of marriage out of the tax code. I would like to see the state less involved in people's consensual relationships. We look at the history of segregation and how a white woman could not marry a black man, or me as a Hispanic. My girlfriend is white. Our relationship would probably be illegal in the Commonwealth 50 years ago. I don't see any reason for the state to determine why somebody is, or I don't believe that the state should have the authority to determine who's in a legitimate relationship for tax purposes, for census purposes, anything like. I don't see any reason for them to be involved in that. That should be between two loving people who are in a consensual relationship.
Okay. And Laura DeLone?
Sorry, Mr. Hager just distracted me.
What would you do with regard to marriage equality if you were in the House of Delegates?
I mean, I agree with both my colleagues. The state shouldn't be saying who can get married. I think if I would enter into a contract, the state should be saying who I'm allowed to do that with, no matter what gender they are. And I think, getting it out of the tax code would be great. We've got a tough process here in Virginia. In 2006, Virginia voters passed the Virginia Marriage Amendment, the Marshall-Newman Act, which basically makes marriage only between a man and a woman, not just marriage, civil liberty or civil unions or anything that can resemble it's going to be a long process to repeal that amendment, and I would work towards that, repealing that amendment, getting on the ballot, getting it passed in both houses, however many times we need to, and then working, as Mr. Haggerty mentioned, to detangle marriage from the tax code. There's a lot of little ways in all levels of government we can not attach regulations and taxes and whatnot to marriage. So there's a lot of different ways we can do that, and I look forward to tackling this.
Great, thank you.
One thing I would mention is Virginia is currently treating members of the National Guard who are in civil unions as they are married. So yes, we have the amendment passed, but the governor has decided to treat those individuals as they are married. So I don't think that the fight will be as difficult, considering the fact that you're already seeing some erosion of that law.
Okay, thank you. On the issue of guns, what would you do to change the law in Virginia, if anything, and how are you different from your opponents in this regard? Starting with Laura Delon.
Well, my opponent is very big on gun control. We differ greatly on that. As a female, I think it's a civil right to be able to protect myself however I see fit, as long as I'm harming nobody else. Sure. I've received the endorsement of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, a great organization that's fighting for our gun rights here in Virginia. And frankly, yeah, pretty good gun laws in Virginia. So I would work to make sure anybody can purchase whatever kind of firearm they want in their own home. So my opponent disagrees with me fiercely. So simple.
And what benefit would this be relative to your opponent's plan or actions as a legislator to the everyday citizen of Virginia? How are your policies superior?
Well, my opponent thinks that by making it harder to get a gun, that we'll have less gun violence, but that just makes it easier for only criminals to have guns. So with my plan, anybody can defend themselves, not just people who are getting around the law. Making things illegal does not keep it off the streets. Same thing with guns, same thing with drugs, most things. That's how government likes to create black markets. So I think by lessening our restrictions on gun control, I'll be able to defend myself however I see fit. That's a civil right in my mind.
Thank you. And over to you, Anthony Tatus.
I was also endorsed by the Virginia Citizens Defense League, primarily because of my vocal support of a constitutional concealed carry amendment. If I'm elected, I'm sorry. Because of my vocal support of the constitutional concealed carry amendment, if I'm elected to the House of Delegates, this is going to be my #1 priority. I believe that self-defense is not just a civil right, it's a natural right. It can't be taken away from you, and you should be allowed to defend yourself with whatever tool you believe you need. My Democratic opponent is actually somebody who helped write the one handgun a month law, which basically means you can only buy one handgun each month. You have to wait a period of 30 days before you can buy your next firearm. This was repealed in 2013, and I would keep it that way. I don't see any reason to return to this legislation. I also would like to see that the concealed weapons permit process is sped up. I'm a concealed weapons permit holder, and when I went through the process of getting my concealed weapons permit, I lived in Fairfax County, and I didn't get my permit until the day they were legally obligated to give it to me. Otherwise, they would have to give me a different kind of permit, basically, that I would have it just because they failed to meet it on time. So I'd like to see that sped up as well. My Republican opponent has not been endorsed by any gun rights organizations, and he does not have any actual stances on whether or not he would support an assault weapons ban or magazine restrictions. I'm opposed to all those things, and I own assault weapons myself, so I will not be giving my weapon away.
Yeah.
Patrick Haggard.
I'm in favor of the constitutional carry as well. I believe everybody should be able to carry a gun. Oh, as long as you're not a felon, not a violent violent person, you're not a nut. But there are nuts out there. So how are you going to protect yourself from those people?
Find your remarks highly offensive.
Join the club. You have to be able to protect yourself. You're not just in danger when when you're in your home, but you're in danger when you're out on the street and you're walking around. We've all seen these recent headlines where people were caught off guard in a no gun-free school zone, a gun-free zone of wherever it was, and guess what? Bad guy won. If that was in Virginia, I would make sure that if I'm elected, I would make sure the constitutional carry passed. And I don't know where my opponents stand because they don't tout this stuff, but I certainly do. And once again, my Democratic opponent will not throw her stuff out. But I have a sneaky suspicion where she stands.